If you're here from part 1, you know my family crossed a line they couldn't come back from, and I was about to show them exactly what that meant. If you're just joining us, here's what you missed. I discovered at my sister Tessa's $80,000 wedding that my family had stolen $85,000 my dying grandmother left specifically for my wedding. Money that was meant to honor the 6 months I spent caring for her while she battled cancer. I had unknowingly planned and coordinated Tessa's entire dream wedding using my own stolen inheritance money. But here's what my family didn't know. As the wedding coordinator, I still had access to everything. Every vendor relationship, every confirmation number, every single detail of Tessa and David's luxury honeymoon in Bali. And I was about to use every single one of them. Drop a comment telling me what you think I should do, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button because this story is far from over. I didn't sleep that night. Not 1 minute. While Jake slept beside me, I sat on our couch with my laptop, going through every email, every confirmation, every vendor contact I'd accumulated over months of planning Tessa's perfect wedding. The honeymoon itinerary was a masterpiece of luxury travel that I'd spent weeks perfecting. 5-star resort in Seminyak, couple spa treatments, private beach dinners, sunset yacht tours, helicopter rides over the volcanic mountains. David had spared no expense, and I'd used every connection I had in the travel industry to make it flawless. 14 days of paradise, costing approximately $25,000. All arranged through my vendor relationships. All with my name as the primary contact. At 3 a.m., I opened a new document and started making lists of everything I had access to. I had contact information for Amankala Resort Bali where I'd booked their ocean suite, Bali Bliss Spa for their couples treatments over 6 days, Sunset Adventures for their private yacht charter, Helicopter Tours Indonesia for their romantic mountain flight, Private Chef Bali for their in-room romantic dinners, and Bali Transportation Services for their luxury car service. More importantly, I realized that all the reservations were still in my name as the coordinator. The credit card authorizations would require verification for any changes. I had arranged special dietary restrictions for Tessa that could be modified. And I could make activity modifications up to 24 hours before each booking. The plan is not to cancel everything. That would be too obvious and could be fixed too easily. Instead, I would create a cascade of small problems that would transform their romantic paradise into an expensive nightmare. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. At 4 a.m., I calculated the time difference. Bali is 15 hours ahead of Portland. It was 7 p.m. Sunday evening there. Perfect business hours. I started making calls. Good evening, Amankala Resort. This is Kadek speaking. How may I assist you? Hi Kadek, this is Meredith Hayes. I'm the wedding coordinator for the Morrison Honeymoon reservation checking in tomorrow morning. Oh yes, Miss Hayes. The ocean suite with champagne service. We are very excited to welcome the happy couple. I'm so glad. Unfortunately, I need to make some urgent modifications to their reservation. There's been a family emergency. The beauty of having coordinated everything was that every vendor knew me, trusted me, and had no reason to question my authority to make changes. Of course, Miss Hayes. What can we help with? First, I need to change their dietary restrictions. Mrs. Morrison has developed a severe shellfish allergy since the wedding planning began. Could you please flag their account to ensure no shellfish in any meals? And also, she's now gluten-free and dairy-free. Tessa was neither gluten-free nor dairy-free. She lived on pasta and cheese. But in Bali, these restrictions would limit her to about 3 menu items at their luxury resort. Certainly. We will make note of these serious allergies. Anything else? Yes, unfortunately their flight has been delayed by the airline. Could you please move their welcome dinner from Monday to Tuesday? And the couple's massage on Tuesday to Wednesday? I know it's short notice. Let me check. Yes, we can accommodate these changes. Though I should mention, the Tuesday dinner was a special chef's table experience that books months in advance. The next availability would be the regular dining room. That's fine, they'll understand. Family emergencies take priority. By the time I hung up, Tessa and David's carefully planned romantic timeline was already falling apart. Next call, Sunset Adventures. Hello, this is Wei-In from Sunset Adventures. Hi, Wei-in. This is Meredith Hayes calling about the Morrison private yacht charter scheduled for Wednesday. Yes. The sunset romance package with dinner and traditional musicians. Exactly. I need to modify the booking. There's been a change in their travel insurance, and they now need to have the charter moved to a group tour instead. Liability issues with their coverage. Oh no. But the private charter is much more romantic. I know, they're devastated. But insurance won't cover private charters anymore. Could you move them to your sunset group tour instead? Same day, but with other couples. Wei-in's enthusiasm dimmed considerably. Yes, we can do this. But the group tour is very different. Many people, not so romantic. They'll understand. These things happen. 40 minutes later, I'd systematically downgraded or rescheduled every major romantic experience of their honeymoon. The private beach dinner became a group barbecue. The helicopter tour was moved to a day when weather forecasts showed rain. The couple spa treatments were changed to individual sessions on different days. But I wasn't done yet. The next phase required more delicate timing. Tessa and David's flight left Portland at 11 a.m., which meant they'd arrive in Bali Monday evening, local time. I waited until 8 a.m. Portland time to make the most crucial call. Chase Credit Services, this is Michael speaking. Hi Michael, this is Meredith Hayes calling about unusual activity verification for a business account. I'd learned from coordinating dozens of weddings that luxury resorts often place verification holds on credit cards for international guests, especially for expensive services. I'm the authorized coordinator for Morrison account number ending in 4823. They're traveling internationally, and I wanted to verify that their card will work for resort charges in Indonesia. Let me look that up. I see this is a business account. Are you listed as an authorized user? I'm their wedding coordinator. David Morrison specifically authorized me to handle travel arrangements. Technically true. He'd given me permission to book everything. I see several large charges pending for Indonesian vendors. These look like legitimate travel expenses, but our fraud department might flag them since it's a new location for this account. That's exactly what I was worried about. Could you place a verification requirement on those charges? I want to make sure they're approved properly. I can add a note requiring phone verification for charges over $500 in Indonesia. Perfect. Every spa treatment, dinner, and activity would require David to call Chase and verify the charges personally. In Bali. During Indonesian business hours. That would be wonderful. Safety first, right? Absolutely. Is there anything else I can help with? Actually, yes. I want to make sure their account is secure. Could you add an additional verification step for any changes to reservations? Sometimes international vendors try to modify bookings without authorization. By the time I hung up, David's credit card would require phone verification for every charge over $500 and every booking modification. Given the time difference and Chase's business hours, this would create delays and complications for every single activity they'd planned. I drove Jake to work that Monday morning, needing something normal to hold onto while my other life exploded in carefully orchestrated chaos. Are you okay? He asked as I pulled up to his school. You've been quiet all morning. I will be, I said. I'm just processing everything. Do you want to talk about next steps? About confronting your family. I kissed him goodbye. Let me handle this my way first. Then we'll talk. At 11:15 a.m., I got a text from Tessa. Boarding now. So excited for paradise. Thank you again for everything. I stared at the heart emoji and the text for a long moment. She was thanking me for arranging her honeymoon with my stolen inheritance money. Have the best time, I texted back. You deserve everything that's coming to you. She probably read that as a sweet sister's blessing. She had no idea what I actually meant. Tuesday afternoon Portland time, which was Wednesday morning in Bali, my phone started buzzing. The first call was from David. Meredith, hey, it's David. Listen, we're having some issues here and Tessa thought you might be able to help. Of course. What's going on? Well, first off, the resort has Tessa marked as having all these food allergies she doesn't have. They won't serve her anything with gluten or dairy, and she's basically living on salad and fruit. Oh no. That's terrible. Did you tell them it was a mistake? We tried, but they said their wedding coordinator, You called personally to update her restrictions due to a medical emergency. They won't change it without documentation from a doctor. I could hear Tessa in the background. I just want a fucking pizza. That's so strange, I said, injecting concern into my voice. I definitely didn't call about any allergies. Maybe there was a mix-up with another couple. Maybe. But can you call them and fix it? Absolutely. I'll call them right away. I wouldn't, of course. What else is going on? The yacht thing got weird. Instead of a private romantic sunset cruise, we're on this group tour with like 12 other couples and screaming kids. And our couples massage got split up. I'm getting mine today and Tessa's is Thursday. Alone. That's awful. Let me look into what happened. Also, every time I try to pay for anything over like $100, my credit card company makes me call and verify it's really me. I spent an hour on the phone this morning trying to pay for our dinner last night. Credit card fraud protection can be so aggressive with international travel, I said sympathetically. Have you tried calling them to remove the restrictions? 3 times. They keep saying they need additional verification for security purposes. By the time David hung up, I could tell their honeymoon was already souring. Day 2 of 14, and they were dealing with food restrictions, scheduling mix-ups, and financial complications. And I was just getting started. Wednesday evening Portland time, I made my second round of calls to Bali. Hello, Private Chef Bali. This is Dewey speaking. Hi Dewey, this is Meredith Hayes, coordinator for the Morrison romantic dinners this week. Oh yes, but we had some confusion. The couple says the wife does not have the dietary restrictions you told us about. I know, it's so frustrating. They're in denial about her new allergies. The doctor says it's psychological. She doesn't want to admit the restrictions because she's afraid it will ruin the honeymoon. This was completely fabricated, but said with enough authority and concern that Dewey immediately became sympathetic. Oh, the poor woman. This happens sometimes. People don't want to accept medical changes. Exactly. The doctor specifically told me to make sure all vendors stick to the restrictions, even if she protests. For her own safety. Of course. We will absolutely maintain the dietary requirements. Thank you so much. Also, I need to add some modifications to tonight's dinner. Can you make it more casual? They've been arguing about the formality of everything, and I think a relaxed atmosphere might help. Certainly. Beach picnic style instead of elegant dining. Perfect. And maybe add some local children's music instead of romantic sounds? Something upbeat to improve their mood. By the time I finished that call, their romantic beachside dinner would feature kid-friendly music, casual picnic seating, and a menu that excluded everything Tessa actually wanted to eat. Call 2. Helicopter Tours Indonesia. Good morning, this is Putu. Hi Putu, Meredith Hayes calling about the Morrison helicopter tour Friday. Yes, the romantic mountain sunrise flight. I need to modify that booking. Mrs. Morrison has developed a fear of heights since their wedding. Could we change it to a ground-based tour instead? Oh no, but the helicopter tour is so beautiful. I know, but she's having panic attacks. Maybe a volcano hiking tour? Something that will still be memorable but keep her feet on the ground. We can arrange a full-day volcano trek. It is very challenging but beautiful. That sounds perfect. Make it as challenging as possible. They both love fitness. Tessa hated exercise and would be wearing new sandals completely inappropriate for hiking. Also, can you schedule it for very early morning? Like 4 a.m. start? They're early risers and want to maximize their day. They were absolutely not early risers. Tessa rarely got up before 10 a.m. Certainly. For a.m. pickup for the Sunrise Volcano Trek. By Thursday, the family group chat was exploding with messages from Tessa complaining that their honeymoon was a complete disaster. She was furious that they wouldn't let her eat normal food, that David's credit card kept getting declined, and that their romantic dinners were turning into what she called kiddie parties. She was especially upset about being scheduled for some death march up a volcano at 4 a.m. Mom asked what was wrong, and Dad suggested they talk to the resort manager. But Tessa explained that every vendor kept saying their coordinator had arranged everything and they couldn't make changes without proper authorization. When Mom asked what coordinator, Tessa exploded that it was me, that I had arranged the whole honeymoon and now nothing was what they'd originally booked. I watched this entire meltdown unfold in real time, reading every frustrated message as their perfect honeymoon crumbled around them. I waited 10 minutes before responding, just long enough to seem like I'd been busy and not monitoring their disaster. I typed back with fake concern, saying how terrible that sounded and insisting I hadn't called any vendors since before the wedding. I suggested there must be some mistake. When Tessa desperately asked if I could call and fix everything, I immediately agreed, adding a worried emoji and promising to start calling right away. Of course, I didn't call anyone to fix their problems. Instead, I made things significantly worse. Friday morning Bali time, I implemented the final phase. I called every vendor and canceled their weekend reservations entirely. Hi, this is Meredith Hayes. I need to cancel the Morrison Spa Day Saturday due to a family emergency. Someone in the wedding party was in a serious accident. Oh no. We hope everyone is okay. We will cancel immediately. Thank you. Also, they'll need to cancel their private beach dinner Sunday. They're flying home early due to the emergency. By noon Bali time, their entire weekend was wiped clean. No spa treatments, no romantic dinners, no activities. Just an expensive resort room with room service that wouldn't serve Tessa anything she wanted to eat. My phone exploded with calls and texts from my panicking family. David called first, his voice furious and demanding to know what the hell was going on. He said they'd canceled everything for their last weekend and that the vendors claimed I'd called about a family emergency. I feigned shock and confusion, insisting I hadn't called anyone and that this must be some kind of mix-up. He exploded that it wasn't a mix-up. Everything they'd booked was completely gone, and the spa had told them someone died in a car accident. I gasped and said how terrible that was, promising to call them right away to fix everything. But David said they'd been calling for hours and the vendors wouldn't reinstate anything without 48-hour notice, plus they were completely booked. Then came the texts from Tessa saying she hated the place, hated the honeymoon, that nothing was working and she couldn't eat anything. She complained that David was stressed about money and that she just wanted to come home. Mom texted asking what was happening in Bali because Tessa sounded really upset. Finally, Tessa called me crying, begging me to help them. She said this was supposed to be the best 2 weeks of her life, but it had been one disaster after another, pleading with me to just fix everything. Hearing my sister cry should have made me feel guilty. Instead, I felt something else entirely. Justice. I told her I was trying, that I'd been calling vendors all week, but they kept saying they had no record of me making changes. When she asked how this could be happening, I suggested maybe it was David's ex-wife. Didn't she work in travel before their divorce? I could hear David in the background cursing about his ex. I told them to just try to enjoy the resort, that sometimes the best honeymoons are the unexpected ones. After she hung up, I sat in my apartment and finally felt the full weight of what I'd done. I had systematically destroyed my sister's honeymoon using her own stolen money and my own carefully cultivated vendor relationships. And I felt absolutely no remorse. I watched from afar as Tessa and David returned from Bali 2 days early, cutting short what Tessa had taken to calling their honeymoon from hell on Instagram. I had been following her social media posts throughout the trip, and they told the story perfectly of their deteriorating experience. On day 1, she'd posted about finding paradise with tropical emojis and honeymoon hashtags. By day 3, she was posting about unexpected travel challenges, but trying to make the best of it with adventure hashtags. Day 6 brought a more honest post about Instagram versus reality, admitting not everything was perfect, but claiming they had each other. By day 9, she was posting about being ready for home and how sometimes the best vacations are in your own bed. After day 9, she'd stopped posting entirely, which told me everything I needed to know about how the rest of their trip was going. I heard they were back when Mom called me Friday afternoon. Honey, Tessa and David are home early from their honeymoon. She's pretty upset about how everything went. Oh no. Is everything okay? She wants to have a family meeting Sunday about the wedding expenses and some concerns about the honeymoon planning. My heart started racing. Concerns. She thinks someone might have deliberately sabotaged their trip. She wants to discuss it with everyone together. That's awful. Who would do something like that? I don't know, but she has some theories. Can you come to dinner Sunday? Around 4. Of course. I want to help however I can. After I hung up, I sat down and made one final list. Not a vendor contact list this time. A list of everything I wanted to say to my family. Everything I'd been holding back for years. Every hurt, every slight, every moment of being treated as less than. Because Sunday dinner was going to be very different from the last family dinner we'd had. This time, I was done being quiet. Saturday, I did something I'd never done before. I called in sick to work, not because I was physically ill, but because I needed a day to prepare mentally for what was coming. I spent the morning with Jake, walking through our neighborhood and talking through what I would say to my family. "Are you going to tell them you sabotaged the honeymoon?" he asked as we sat on a bench in Laurel Hist Park. I don't know yet. Part of me wants to see if they'll figure it out first. And the other part? The other part wants to watch them try to blame me for something they have no proof I did, while I have absolute proof they stole from me. Jake was quiet for a moment. "You know, a year ago, you would never have done any of this. A year ago, I didn't know my family had stolen my grandmother's dying gift. No, I mean, you would have found out about the money and confronted them directly. You would have asked for an explanation and tried to work it out peacefully." He was right. The old Meredith would have scheduled a family meeting, presented the facts calmly, and asked for the money to be returned with minimal drama. "What's that say about me?" I asked. "It says you're tired of being the one who sacrifices everything to keep everyone else comfortable." That afternoon, I did something else I'd never done. I went shopping for an outfit specifically chosen to make a statement. I'd spent Tessa's wedding in a clearance dress, trying to blend into the background and not draw attention from the bride. For this dinner, I bought a red dress. Not wedding red, but confident woman who won't be ignored red. I got my hair styled at a real salon instead of doing it myself. I bought expensive makeup and took time to apply it properly. If this was going to be a confrontation, I wanted to look like someone who couldn't be dismissed or talked over. I wanted to look like someone who knew exactly what she was worth. I arrived at my parents' house at exactly 4 p.m., wearing my red dress and carrying a manila folder. The folder contained printouts of every email, every bank record, every piece of evidence related to Grandma Rose's wedding fund. But it also contained something else, screenshots of every vendor communication from the past week. Every call log, every modification, every cancellation. If they wanted to accuse me of sabotaging the honeymoon, I was ready. Mom opened the door, and I saw her eyes widen slightly at my appearance. "Meredith, you look very nice. Red is definitely your color." "Thank you. Where is everyone?" "Living room. Tessa and David are already here." I walked into the living room where my family was assembled like a tribunal. Dad in his recliner, Mom perched on the edge of the sofa. Tessa and David sitting close together on the love seat, both looking grim. Tessa looked terrible. Her honeymoon tan couldn't hide the stress lines around her eyes, and she'd lost weight, probably from days of trying to eat resort food that met her fabricated dietary restrictions. "Hi everyone," I said, choosing to stand rather than sit. "Mom said you wanted to discuss the honeymoon issues?" Tessa's eyes narrowed. "Issues?" "Meredith, our honeymoon was completely destroyed." "I'm so sorry to hear that. What happened?" "You tell me," David said, his voice hostile. "Every single vendor said you'd called to make changes." "That's impossible. I haven't called any Bali vendors since before your wedding." Dad cleared his throat. "Now, let's stay calm and figure this out rationally." "Rationally?" Tessa's voice was rising. "Dad, someone deliberately sabotaged our honeymoon. Someone with access to all our bookings, someone the vendors trusted, someone who knew exactly how to make our trip miserable." She was staring directly at me. "That's a serious accusation," I said calmly. "Do you have any proof?" The vendors all said. "Said what?" "That someone named Meredith called." "Do you know how many Merediths work in the travel industry? Do you have recordings? Documentation? Anything beyond hearsay from vendors who probably barely speak English?" Mom shifted uncomfortably. "Girls, please. We're family. Are we?" I asked, looking around the room. "Because I'm starting to wonder about that." The room went very quiet. Tessa's eyes flashed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said, opening my folder and pulling out the first document, that I had a very interesting conversation with Grandpa Walter at your wedding reception. The color drained from Dad's face. He told me about the $85,000 he sent for my wedding fund. The money Grandma Rose specifically left for me to honor my sacrifice in caring for her while she died. The silence was deafening. Meredith, Mom started. We can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you stole my dying grandmother's final gift and used it to pay for Tessa's wedding? Can you explain why you let me plan and coordinate the entire celebration using my own stolen inheritance? Tessa looked confused. What money? What are you talking about? I turned to her. The $85,000 Grandpa Walter sent Dad for my wedding expenses. The money your parents used to pay for your dream wedding while I planned a courthouse ceremony and Applebee's reception. I didn't know anything about that money, Tessa said, but her voice was uncertain. Didn't you? You knew your wedding cost $80,000. You knew Mom and Dad were contributing $50,000. Did you ever wonder where they got that kind of money? Dad finally found his voice. Meredith, you have to understand. No, I cut him off. I don't have to understand anything. You stole from me. You betrayed Grandma Rose's dying wish. You let me coordinate my own stolen wedding while you all laughed about how practical my courthouse ceremony was. We weren't laughing at you, Mom protested weakly. Weren't you? It's for real family, Dad said about your cruise. Remember that? Real family gets $80,000 weddings. Real family gets dream honeymoons. Fake family gets to coordinate the party and clean up the dishes. The tears I'd been holding back for months finally started falling, but my voice stayed strong. I gave up my job, my apartment, my fiancé, my future to take care of the woman who raised you, Dad. I held her hand while she died, and she left me money to thank me for that sacrifice. And you gave it to the daughter who couldn't be bothered to visit. Tessa was crying now too. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know the money was meant for you. But you knew I was struggling. You knew I was having a courthouse wedding while you got a museum reception. You knew, and you didn't care. David shifted uncomfortably. Look, if there was some kind of mix-up with family money. Mix-up. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. David, let me ask you something. How much did you personally contribute to your $80,000 wedding? We split some of the costs. How much? About $30,000. So Tessa's parents paid $50,000 for your wedding. $50,000 they stole from their other daughter. How does that make you feel? He didn't answer. I turned back to my parents. You want to talk about sabotage? Let's talk about how you sabotaged my relationship with Grandma Rose's memory. How you sabotaged my trust in my own family. How you sabotaged my ability to have the wedding she dreamed of giving me. We can pay you back, Dad said desperately. We can take out a loan. With what collateral? You're already carrying 2 mortgages from your last financial crisis. Besides, it's not about the money anymore. Then what is it about? Mom asked. I looked around the room at the 4 people who were supposed to love me most in the world. It's about the fact that you're sitting here accusing me of ruining Tessa's honeymoon because some vendors got confused, while you actually, provably, stole $85,000 that belonged to me. It's about the fact that even now, faced with evidence of what you've done, you're more concerned about Tessa's vacation than the grandmother's dying wish you betrayed. I closed my folder and stood up. I want the money returned. All of it. I want a written apology. And I want you to tell Grandpa Walter exactly what you did with his gift. And if we don't? Dad asked, his voice hard. Then you'll find out exactly how much damage someone can do when they stop caring about keeping the family together. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and about the honeymoon? Tessa, David, I'm sorry your trip didn't meet your expectations. But you know what? Sometimes life is disappointing. Sometimes people don't get what they think they deserve. Sometimes the person who's been taking care of everyone else finally stops. Are you admitting you sabotaged our honeymoon? Tessa asked. I smiled. I'm saying that when you push someone too far, you might not like the consequences. But proving it? That's another story entirely. Meredith, Mom called as I reached the door. Where does this leave us? As a family? I paused, my hand on the doorknob. I don't know, Mom. That depends on whether you choose to make this right, or whether you choose to keep protecting the people who take while ignoring the one who gives. You can't just destroy this family over money, Dad said. I'm not destroying anything, I replied. I'm just finally stopping holding it together. And then I left. The drive home was surreal. I felt simultaneously empty and full, drained and energized. Jake was waiting in our apartment with Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. "How did it go?" he asked, taking one look at my face. "I think I just declared war on my entire family." "Good," he said, surprising me. "It's about time." Over dinner, I told him everything. Their accusations, my revelations, the way they'd tried to make Tessa the victim even after learning what they'd done. "So what happens now?" he asked. "I don't know. Maybe they'll apologize and pay me back. Maybe they'll cut me off entirely. Maybe something in between." "How do you feel about that?" I considered the question. Scared. Sad. But also relieved. I've spent my whole life trying to earn love that was never really available. Maybe it's time to stop trying. My phone had been buzzing all evening with texts from family members, but I'd ignored them all. Finally, around 10 p.m., I looked at the messages that had been piling up. Mom had texted asking me to call her, saying we needed to talk about this as a family. Dad's message said that while I was upset, and rightfully so, threatening the family wasn't the answer. Kyle had written that Mom told him what happened, and he had no idea about Grandma's money, asking if we could talk. But it was Tessa's message that made me laugh out loud. She said she was sorry about the money and really didn't know about it, but that destroying her honeymoon was cruel, and she didn't know if she could forgive that. I turned off my phone and went to bed, sleeping better than I had in months. The next week brought a steady stream of family drama that played out through text messages, phone calls, and carefully worded Facebook posts. Mom called Monday morning while I was at work. "Meredith, I understand you're hurt, but you can't just tear this family apart." "I'm not tearing anything apart. I'm just not holding it together anymore." "What's the difference?" "The difference is that I've been the one sacrificing, compromising, and swallowing my hurt to keep everyone comfortable. Now I'm stopping. If the family falls apart without my effort, what does that tell you about the family?" "It tells me you're being selfish." "Good. I'm 26 years old. It's about time I learned how to be selfish." Dad tried a different approach Wednesday evening. "I've been thinking about what you said. About the money. Maybe we can work out a payment plan." "A payment plan for stolen inheritance money?" "It wasn't stolen. It was misappropriated." "Dad, if you took money from your employer's account and used it for personal expenses, what would that be called?" "That's different." "Is it?" Tessa's approach was pure Tessa. She tried to make herself the victim. She posted a long Instagram story about toxic family members and people who smile to your face while stabbing you in the back. She didn't name me directly, but the timing was obvious. The post got dozens of supportive comments from people who had no idea what was actually happening. "Stay strong, babe. Family can be the worst sometimes. You don't need toxic people in your life, even if they're related. Some people are just jealous of others' happiness." I screenshot the post and sent it to Jake with the caption, "The woman whose wedding was funded by my stolen inheritance is calling me toxic." "Are you going to respond?" he asked when he got home. "No. Let her dig her own hole." But Kyle surprised me by reaching out genuinely. "Can we get coffee? Just us? I want to understand what happened." We met Thursday evening at a neutral cafe downtown. Kyle looked tired, older somehow. "Mom and Dad told me about the money," he said immediately. "I had no idea Grandpa had sent anything for you." "Did you know how much they contributed to Tessa's wedding?" "I knew it was a lot, but 50,000? He shook his head. "Jesus, Meredith. No wonder you're pissed. Are you taking sides?" "I'm trying to figure out how my family became people who steal from each other." We talked for 2 hours. Really talked, probably for the first time as adults. Kyle admitted he'd always known I was treated differently, but he'd told himself it was because I was more capable and didn't need help. "That was bullshit, wasn't it?" he said. "We just let Mom and Dad treat you like the family servant because it was easier than standing up for you." "Yeah, it was. I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry." "Thank you. That means more than you know." "So what happens now? With the family?" "I don't know. I told them what I need, the money returned, an apology, and honesty with Grandpa Walter. If they do those things, maybe we can rebuild. If not, then I guess I'll finally know where I stand." What my parents didn't expect was that Grandpa Walter had his own plans. The following Sunday, he drove up from Nashville unannounced. I only found out because Mom called me, panicking. Your grandfather is here, and he's asking for financial records. He wants to see bank statements and receipts from Tessa's wedding. Okay. Meredith, please, can't you talk to him? Tell him this is just a family misunderstanding. Why would I do that? Because he's threatening to cut off everyone's inheritance if we don't return the money immediately. I was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Mom, he sent that money specifically for my wedding. You stole it and used it for Tessa. Why would I help you avoid consequences? Because we're family. Are we? Because family members don't usually steal from each other. Meredith, please. He's talking about lawyers. Good. Maybe you'll take this seriously. I hung up and immediately called Grandpa Walter. Sweetheart, his voice was warm but tired. I was just thinking about calling you. I heard you're in Portland. I am. And I'm not happy with what I've discovered. How much do you know? Everything. Your father finally told me the truth about where my money went. I'm appalled, Meredith. Absolutely appalled. What are you going to do? I'm going to make this right. That money was Rose's final gift to you, and I'll be damned if I let them steal it. Grandpa, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Your grandmother trusted me to take care of you after she was gone, and I failed. I won't fail again. That evening, Grandpa Walter called a family meeting of his own. I wasn't there, but Kyle filled me in afterward. It was brutal, he said. Grandpa didn't yell, but somehow that made it worse. He just laid out the facts in this calm, disappointed voice. What did he say? He said he was ashamed of Dad for stealing from his own daughter. He said he was disappointed in Mom for going along with it. He said he was heartbroken that they'd betrayed Rose's dying wish. And Tessa? He told her that while she might not have known where the money came from, she'd benefited from theft and needed to take responsibility for that. How did they react? Dad got defensive and tried to justify it. Mom cried. Tessa actually surprised me. She apologized. Really apologized, not just for show. And Grandpa gave them 30 days to return the full $85,000 to you, plus interest, or he's changing his will to leave everything to charity. He doesn't have to do that. Maybe not, but he's doing it anyway. He said the Hayes family name used to mean something, and he won't let thieves inherit what he and Rose built. 3 weeks later, Dad called. We have the money, he said without preamble. All of it. $85,000 plus 6% interest for 2 years. $95,840 total. How? Second mortgage on the house. We meet with the lawyer tomorrow to transfer it to your account. And what? The apology. And telling Grandpa Walter the truth. A long pause. We've already talked to your grandfather. And I'm sorry, Meredith. We're all sorry. What we did was wrong. It wasn't the heartfelt, detailed apology I'd hoped for, but it was something. What about Tessa? She wants to talk to you herself. Tessa called that evening. I know you're probably not ready to hear from me, she started, but I needed to say some things. I'm listening. I really didn't know the money was meant for you. But Kyle made me realize that I should have questioned where Mom and Dad got $50,000. I should have wondered why they were spending so much on my wedding while you were having a courthouse ceremony. Yeah, you should have. I was so caught up in having my dream wedding that I didn't think about anyone else. And that's on me. It is. I don't know if you sabotaged my honeymoon. I can't prove it either way. But if you did, I guess I understand why. I didn't confirm or deny it. What happens now? She asked. I don't know, Tessa. Trust isn't easy to rebuild. I want to try. If you'll let me. We'll see. With the returned money plus interest, Jake and I were able to plan the wedding we'd actually wanted. Not the $80,000 museum extravaganza Tessa had, but something beautiful and meaningful and truly ours. We rented a small historic mansion in the Pearl District for the ceremony and reception. I bought a dress I actually loved instead of one I could afford. We hired a photographer whose work made us cry happy tears. The guest list was small, just people who had actually supported us, actually shown up for us, actually cared about our happiness. Grandpa Walter walked me down the aisle. Kyle was Jake's best man. A few close friends from work and school filled out the celebration. Notably absent, my parents and Tessa. I'd sent them invitations. In the spirit of family healing, I wrote in the note. But I'd also made it clear that attending would require acknowledging what they'd done and committing to doing better. They chose not to come. "I'm sorry they're not here," Jake said as we danced our first dance. "I'm not," I replied, looking around at the people who had actually earned the right to celebrate with us. "I'd rather have 30 people who love me than 100 people who tolerate me." The wedding cake was salted caramel, the same flavor I'd chosen for Tessa's wedding. But this time, I got to eat it. During the toasts, Grandpa Walter stood up. "Rose would be so proud of the woman Meredith has become," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "She always said Meredith had the strongest heart in the family." It just took the rest of us a while to realize what that meant. Later, as Jake and I cut the cake, I thought about Grandma Rose. About her hands teaching me to bake, about the months I'd spent caring for her, about the money she'd saved to thank me for that love. This wedding, our wedding, was exactly what she would have wanted for me. Not the most expensive celebration, but the most authentic one. A celebration of love that was freely given and genuinely received. A year after the wedding, I got a text from Tessa. "David and I are getting divorced." I called her because despite everything, she was still my sister. "What happened?" Turns out he was cheating with his business partner's wife. Has been since before we got married. "I'm sorry." "Are you? Really?" I thought about it. "Yeah, I am. I never wanted you to be unhappy, Tessa. I just wanted to be treated fairly. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. About how I treated you. About how we all did. And I think I'm finally ready to do the work to be a better sister. If you'll let me." We started slowly. Coffee once a month. Texts on birthdays and holidays. She entered therapy to work through some of her own issues with entitlement and selfishness. Mom and Dad took longer to come around. It wasn't until Kyle refused to bring his girlfriend to family dinners unless I was invited that they started making real efforts to repair our relationship. The money they'd stolen was just money. But the lesson it taught, that I deserved to be treated with respect and love, not just tolerated and used, that was priceless. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept poor treatment. Sometimes you have to break things before you can fix them. And sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into. Jake and I bought a house with part of the wedding money. The rest we invested for our future. A future I'm building on my own terms, with people who see my worth and treat me accordingly. Grandma Rose's final gift wasn't just the money for a wedding. It was the catalyst that finally taught me to value myself the way she'd always valued me. And that lesson was worth more than all the salted caramel cake in the world. Thank you for following me on this journey. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need permission to finally stand up for ourselves. Drop a comment sharing your own family drama stories. I read every single one. Hit that like button if you believe people should face consequences for their actions, and subscribe to Revenge with Nick for more stories about justice, boundaries, and refusing to accept less than you deserve. Remember, you teach people how to treat you. Make sure you're teaching them well.